What is going on, my friends, my UDL brethren? Once again, it is your non-corrupt commissioner, the good one, Matty Brolick, back again to bring you all a really cool game that we had this week for week one. I was hoping I would have had more of these uploaded by now because I uploaded them, I think, on like Sunday or Monday. I uploaded a whole bunch of games that were played. I think it was Sunday, and there was already 4 games that were played, but we actually haven't had any played again until Thursday night, which was last night. So I figured because this game was really intense and kind of a highlight game in terms of the people playing in it, I thought it would be cool to at least get this one out, and figured it was one of the better ones to be a standalone upload. And I just have a lot of time today, so I'm like, you know what, let me make use of it, doing something kind of fun, and upload this battle. So yeah, we'll just get straight into it. Now, like I said, this was kind of a highlight game based on the people playing, and 2 very well-respected players in the format, very well known throughout the community. Not even just the draft community for Rob Jr. He's also very well known in Smogon, as he's a successful Smogon tournament player. And then there's Hiker Toad, who I'm not sure if he plays in like Smogon tournaments at all. Maybe he does a little bit here and there, but I'm not really familiar with it if he does. But he's just been in the draft community for a long time now, consistently being towards the top of it. So it was really cool to get both of these guys in the league this season, and the fact that they were matched up week 1 was definitely hype. So one thing that's kind of cool about this match too is it's a rematch, because these 2 were actually placed 2nd and 3rd in the CG Cash Tour, which happened recently, and they actually played each other in the losers finals to make it to the grand finals. It was Rob who actually won, and Hiker who took 3rd. So that was really cool. There was like 320 people in that tournament, so finishing top 3 is pretty nuts. So that's really cool. And yeah, with that being said, like I said, this was definitely a hype one going into it. So we'll get straight into the team preview. And as you can see, both teams are like almost OU looking teams. They definitely have some pretty strong rosters. You have Rob Jr. with the Mega Diancie, and then he's got just a pretty Rob-like assortment of Mons. He has some offensive threats, but also good natural bulk with things like Jirachi, Garchomp, and then a pretty fat core with Tangrowth and Melodic. But then he's got 2 kind of like faster and more frail attackers in both the Mega Diancie and the Mienshao. Then on Hiker's side, you have Mew, Lando T. Mew, Lando T, Rotom Wash. I mean, that is a really nice, like, bulky offensive core right there in and of itself, but it doesn't really end there, because then next up he's got Gengar, one of the better breakers in the format. I mean, that's debatable, but Gen 6 Gengar is really strong. Gengar's pretty strong in every gen, basically, but back in Gen 6 with Levitate 2, which is probably the superior ability. Like, yes, I know being a grounded poison has its merits for Gengar, but having that Earthquake immunity is really nice. And as you can see here, Rob's got a Garchomp, and he has to deal with 3 Earthquake immunities, which is definitely could be annoying for him. So also looking at Rob's team, and he does not have a Pokemon that really resists Gengar stabs at all. I mean, he doesn't have a Ghost Resist here, and then Tangrowth gets destroyed by Sludge Wave if it's something like Assault Vest. Obviously, Gengar could have coverage for things like Melodic if stabs don't hit hard enough. But yeah, so Gengar looks like a massive threat. Snorlax, although got a big buff in Gen 7, has always been a great Pokemon, pretty versatile, can do a lot. And then Steelix, which is a decent Steel type. So overall, both really strong looking teams. This is Oras, by the way, just in case anyone either didn't know or forgot. And yeah, enough with this intro. We'll start getting right into the battle. So Hiker leads off with the Lando T. Smart lead, because in Gen 6, if you forgot this too, which is definitely one of the things to remember when you are playing Gen 6, is that the mechanic with Mega Evolutions, they keep their base form speed before Mega Evolving. So Mega Diancie will start off with regular Diancie's base 50 speed the turn that it evolves. So this Landorus, even if it is not Choice Scarfed or anything like that, can just click Earthquake turn 1, because the Diancie, if it has Protect, will probably go for it, and if it doesn't, it'll probably switch out and Rob's team actually doesn't have a levitating or flying Pokemon, so does not have a ground immunity here. Very basically free Earthquake for Hiker right now. So he's going to click Earthquake, and Rob does reveal to have the Protect. So now Mega Diancie naturally would be faster than Landorus. So Hiker switching that out does indicate that maybe the Landorus is not as fast as the Diancie here, but either way, he probably also knows that Rob kind of is forced to switch out here because it would be very risky to not scout that turn 1 to know if that's a Scarf Landorus, especially being that Rob doesn't have a flying type, like I said. So because he has no ground immunity, it's just a very free Earthquake for Hiker. So Hiker tries to capitalize on that and goes right into Mew and just clicks Will-O-Wisp as Rob goes right for the knockoff. Very nice to remove the Mew's leftovers, makes it a lot less difficult to deal with. But then Hiker actually goes for another Will-O-Wisp here, expecting Rob to switch out, maybe thinking the Tangrowth couldn't do anything to the Mew or that it didn't want to get set up on. Or, not exactly sure why, but that's going to cost him because he actually takes a Sleep Powder from the Tangrowth. I know Will-O-Wisp is just really good against Rob's team in general, but another thing he could have had to kind of worry about was Diancie trying to come in on Stealth Rocks or something. So either way, he goes for the Will-O-Wisp again and gets punished for it by being put to sleep with that Sleep Powder. So now he's going to burn a turn of sleep as Rob goes right into his Diancie, clicks Earth Power just in case Hiker wanted to go hard Steelix. Snorlax goes for the Earthquake here on the Tangrowth, doing very little, going back to his Mew, looking like he wants to try to wake up with the Mew, as he does stay in one more time and actually does wake up, gets a nice first turn wake up basically, and takes a Toxic here from the Jirachi, but is able to, actually no, he doesn't get the Wisp off here, he goes for a Taunt, so that did not work out too well for Rob, or for Hiker. Maybe he thought that he'd be faster than the Jirachi, or maybe he just wanted to taunt an incoming Tangrowth. I'm not exactly sure what his thought process was there. I'm thinking that he probably expected to be faster than the Jirachi, but that didn't work out very well as he took a Toxic and he didn't get the Will-O-Wisp off. Instead, he went for a Taunt. So here he brings back the Steelix on the Milotic and goes into the Rotom Wash. Rob makes a good play Toxicing that. So Rob's looking pretty good in the early going of this match as Rotom goes for a Wisp now, catches the Jirachi, and for those of you that don't know or may have forgotten, Burn does do 12.5% instead of 6.25% back in Gen 6, so Burn is definitely more of a devastating status back in the day. So here comes the Steelix in on the Jirachi as he gets up his own rocks here, which is definitely going to be nice to chip down Rob's team as he's been pivoting back and forth pretty freely. As here comes the Mew, probably just going to roost up as he does indeed do that on the Mienshao. The Mienshao goes for the U-turn. And here comes the Mega Diancie. So now this thing could just kind of click whatever attack it wants to go for. And Hiker tries going into his Snorlax again, trying to protect his Steelix. But unfortunately for him, Rob goes for the Diamond Storm, which is strong enough to 2-hit KO this Snorlax and gets a defense boost on top of it. So that's definitely not good for Hiker as he's kind of forced to sack off the Snorlax here. So here he brings in the Landorus, just goes for an Earthquake here, kind of revealing that he might be Scarfed, but makes a very good aggressive double into his Gengar because the Tangrowth and the Milotic were, pretty safe pivots, even if the Landorus was Scarfed and would have outsped the Diancie. So going hard into the Gengar here was a great play because now it really forces some damage on something. So I think he goes for the Shadow Ball here. As yes, he does go for the Shadow Ball, makes the aggressive Shadow Ball play as well, which works out pretty well here because now this, I know he gets the drop right away, but this is more in probably Hiker's favor than Rob because Rob has to keep trying to recover up, and he's not going to be netting that much recovery. He probably need to recover like 4 or 5 times to safely be out of range of 2 Shadow Balls. So he probably was going to get a drop in there's a can't talk. There was a pretty good chance he would have gotten a drop had Rob just spammed recover there. So he does get the drop right away though, which is unfortunate nonetheless. But now it's going to force a kill basically because Rob has nothing that can just come in on this Gengar very easily. Now, interestingly enough, the Mienshao comes in at 100, so that reveals that he is Regenerator because initially he did take some Stealth Rock chip and came in again at 100. So that is interesting. Brings in the Mienshao on the Gengar, and Hiker is forced to switch. Goes Rotom, takes the knockoff decently well, but now Rob switches up the move, so it reveals that he is not Choice Scarfed and does knock out the Rotom, which is pretty good for Rob because now he's in a pretty solid spot. A lot of Hiker's team is worn down. Hiker does have that Gengar that is extremely powerful versus Rob, as well as a great potential cleaner and a Scarf Landorus against the team with no ground immunities, but Rob is definitely playing his cards pretty well so far, as he's constantly positioning himself into a good spot to just continuously wear down Hiker's team and not have to take too many aggressive risks, whereas Hiker really needs to kind of push the pace. So here, Hiker makes the good U-turn play, but does take Helmet Chip in the process, revealing that it is a Helmet Tangrowth. Now here, Rob is kind of forced to sack something as he just ends up going into the Melodic, I guess figuring that's his most expendable Pokemon here, as here comes the Mienshao. Now, the way he's playing this Mienshao seems like it's Assault Vest, because if it was some kind of offensive Mienshao, I don't know if it would get OHKO'd by Specs Shadow Ball from Gengar. That is Specs, by the way. I'm not 100% sure. Like, obviously, you could EV Mienshao to probably live one, but like an offensive Mienshao, I wonder if it would be able to reliably live a Specs Shadow Ball from Gengar, or, like I'm saying, is that the way he's playing, it seems like he is pretty comfortable bringing it in on this Gengar, meaning that maybe it's Assault Vest or something. So here, he goes right for the knockoff on the Steelix, and now Hiker makes the aggressive switch right back into Gengar, catching Rob with the high jump kick. But as, silly as that might seem normally to take that risk with your best remaining Gengar check, Rob does know that he has the Regenerator, and like I said, it seems like he is playing it like it is Assault Vest. So this, to me, like rung all the bells in my head saying this is definitely Assault Vest, because otherwise that risk probably wouldn't be worth it, as he could still pivot this Mienshao out. He still is in a pretty solid spot in this match, and regain enough HP to potentially take a Specs move from Gengar and knock it out with a knockoff. So now he is kind of just forced to sack something else, as the Diancie does just drop to one Shadow Ball as he brings Mienshao back in. Now here, from this range of HP, if Mienshao wasn't Assault Vest, then I don't think it'd be able to live this attack. So that pretty much confirms that it is AV, and Hiker knows this. So he goes back into his Steelix, and Mienshao U-turns on the incoming Mew, as I'm not sure if he brought this Mew in predicting, or maybe he just figured it was his best sack, but I'm wondering, yeah, maybe he just figured that he couldn't risk the Steelix because he needed something to bait the Mienshao into potentially going for high jump kick. So he went into Mew as kind of like a mid-ground there, because just giving Rob the momentum here with an obvious U-turn didn't seem like the best play to me, but maybe he just genuinely thought that this Mew was more expendable than having that Steelix around. Not exactly sure, but here he drops to the Dragon Claw and now is able to bring in his Steelix, as I think its Choco Berry was knocked off, but it probably could still live an Earthquake from Garchomp from here if this Garchomp is not Choice Scarfed or choiced in general. So here he brings in the Gengar, scouting for the Earthquake, and this is like one of those moments where I'm just like, all right, Gen 6, because I just forget that Gengar has Levitate, because it's had Cursed Body now for 2 generations. So he goes into Gengar and avoids the Earthquake. So now Hiker's aggressive switches have really kind of pulled him back into this match, because Rob was making pretty much all the right plays this whole time, but he didn't force risks when he didn't really have to. But Hiker knew that Rob didn't really need to force risks and took advantage of that by making some aggressive switches into this Gengar, the one thing that Rob just really can't deal with very well. And that is paying off very nicely, because Rob did take some like mid-ground risks early on in the game to put him in a great spot, but Hiker is gradually pulling himself back in, big strides at a time, because of how powerful this Gengar is against Rob's team. So Hiker is just going to be able to click. Oh, he actually goes for Hidden Power here. That's right. He goes for HP Ice. So the HP Ice would have cleanly probably OHKO'd Garchomp if it was not Yachi, but because this Mienshao is Assault Vest, it is able to come in on the Gengar here. So that does halt Hiker's momentum for sure. As here he goes for the U-turn on the Steelix, and now Hiker is going to go into the Landorus T, and it reveals that the Garchomp is actually Swords Dance. So not a Scarf Garchomp. Probably a good thing for Hiker, because that allows this Scarf Landorus to actually outspeed it and get off necessary damage, so Gengar can go for one of its stab moves, probably Shadow Ball. So here he actually reveals the Explosion, which cleanly knocks out the Garchomp, which is pretty crazy, honestly. Garchomp is so bulky. And now Hiker goes into his Steelix as the Mienshao U-turns into Tangrowth. So in here, it's probably going to come down to not really 50-50s, but Hiker is definitely in the worst spot here. Rob is in the more commanding position because the Mienshao basically just cleans up the game. It is coming in at full, I believe, or close to it, so it could easily live one attack from Gengar unless maybe a crit. So with that being the case, Rob's going to have to try to find some way to get damage on, or Hiker's going to need to find some way to get some damage on the Mienshao, because Gengar probably can't do it on its own. But the thing is, the Tangrowth could just continuously whittle down the Steelix here to the point where either the Tangrowth knocks it out or puts it in range of a Mienshao's knockoff or something. So Hiker clicks Earthquake just in case the Mienshao wanted to stay in. And here he misses his Ice Fang, which is unfortunate for him, but I am not sure how much that would have mattered in the long run, because he would have taken the Rocky Helmet and then this turn been in range of Giga Drain. As you're going to see here, he goes down to the Rocky Helmet damage there. So I'm pretty sure at this point, barring a crit, that Rob has this in the bag, as yes, the Mienshao comes in at full, and even with a crit, I don't think that even would have knocked out. So really good bring on Rob's part, bringing Assault Vest Mienshao, because it just goes to show how good of an ability Regenerator is when you have a Pokemon as frail as Mienshao, which his defenses are like maybe 65 in what is HP or SPDF, but definitely 60 in one of them because they're pretty low, and it might be 60s across the board, who knows. But regardless, with the +1 boost to its SPDF and then constantly getting 33% back by pivoting in and out with his Mienshao, just really kept him in the game the entire time, allowed him to make some safe plays throughout the match and not potentially risk throwing the game away, because the Mienshao was able to keep pivoting in and out and just healing back up, always giving him a insurance blanket against the Gengar. So really well done on Rob's part, because as you can see, he did not really have good checks to Gengar. The Gengar almost single-handedly brought this game back, but Rob definitely made some great plays in the early going to put himself in a good position, so later on in the game he didn't have to take too many unnecessary risks, and that definitely worked out for him, as Hiker made some great plays in the mid to end game, but it just wasn't enough to kind of overcome the early goings of the match, and Rob just consistently playing well the entire time, not giving Hiker enough room to capitalize or breathe. So great game between these two, really, really good game. I would love to see these two get a rematch sometime in playoffs or something, but they got to make it. This is only week 1, and there's still 8 more weeks to go, so we'll see what happens. I definitely have high hopes for both of these guys. Like I said earlier on, they've been very successful in the draft format for a long time, so wouldn't be surprised to see them do well this season, but you never know. We have a stacked roster. It's 3 different tiers, so anything can happen, really. Definitely excited to see how it goes, and congratulations to Rob on the great week 1 win. Hiker, I know he'll bounce back pretty solidly, and only a 1-0 loss, so it's not going to hurt his differential very much. So definitely excited to see how both these guys do in the remainder of the season. Hopefully I'll have some more of these videos uploaded this weekend. It's actually my birthday weekend, so I don't know how much I'll be around to do it, but even if it's like during next week, if I have some time, I'd like to do it. So with that being said, hope you all enjoyed watching this video. Definitely let me know what you thought in the comments down below, and yeah, most importantly, hope you guys are having a fantastic day, and I'll see you all in the next one later.